Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Neid, and today I am joined from across the pond by my new friend, Alex Povey. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Beautiful.
Perfect. Alex Povey and I met at the Coach's Room Mastermind in Virginia last month. We hit it off because we're both in the mentorship space, had a quick chat, and I realized this is someone I want to speak to more. So Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me. We didn't really get to speak that much over in
Not
Virginia.
enough.
I mean, we had a few little talks in the hallways, but I'm excited to talk to you because obviously I respect the work you do. You mix in the same circles of very respected people, and my goal today is just provide as much value and insight to the people listening to this because I'm sure you've got an audience who are thirsty to learn, and I love to teach. So appreciate you inviting me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I think we jive very well on that. The goal of any coach should be to add value with everything that you do, and not expect anything in return, because the returns are kind of, we'll call it, the returns are by proxy of the process of adding value. You don't have to focus on the returns. They just come. So I want to chat about kind of how you got into the space, what it is that you do with remotecoaches.com, and, what makes your business special.
I think I'm a bit different in the sense that I've not come in the traditional way into like the mentorship space. So a lot of people will become like a personal trainer, for example, build a successful personal training business, then maybe cap out, go online, figure out the online world, and then go, okay, cool. Like I've got a blueprint now that I'm going to go ahead and teach other people. That's like the traditional route, right? Is like Fit Pro to Biz Coach. But my experience starts from about 10 years ago when I came out of university and I started selling. So I started selling basically like off-plan investments, like new build investments.
Okay.
Basically like pre-construction to investors. And that was like my first little taste of like selling something other than sweets at school, because that's where I actually began selling, but something real of substance. And I really struggled with it. And I realized that, okay, if I'm going to be good at selling, then I need someone that's going to be able to teach me how to do it, someone that's already kind of like walked that path. And so they hired a sales trainer. And over the course of about 6 months, he trained me up to go from like trash to killer when it comes to like closing. And I was like, wow, this is like really powerful, like learning from other people. And it had a massive impact on my career. Then I got an opportunity, and I'll speed things up, to move out of that business into actually running something for someone else, but pretty much be an equity partner in that business, which was an ecom business where this guy from America gave us $1 million. And we took that $1 million, we grew an ecom business to $2.9 million in revenue in about 18 months with 7 staff, which is insane. So it grew really, really quickly. And that was just all selling online products. And then that business was great, but we were like, you know what? This is not ours. I want something that's 100% mine. I was still just an equity partner in that business. So we started looking into other opportunities. And the first business I personally set up myself was an agency, a marketing agency. And we're trying to figure out like what market to go into. And I'm really big into health, into fitness, into nutrition, into training, all that good stuff. And so I was always told that when you're going to pick a niche, pick something that you like or pick something that you understand. And so I was like, you know what, let's go with like fitness. And so we started running ads and generating leads for fitness coaches. And then we realized that actually people don't just need like leads, they need everything. You know what I mean? Like leads sometimes don't solve the problem. They need leads, they need systems, they need like sales processes. And so we started then getting more into like a coaching role with these fitness professionals. And I started helping personal trainers on the gym floor because I felt qualified because I'd built a successful business and sold over $15 million in sales. And they struggle to build businesses and they struggle to make sales. So I was like, okay, it's the perfect pairing, you know? You know, when you pair a wine with food, it was kind of like that perfect pairing in my sense. And so I started helping these trainers, and then the gyms closed in 2020. I think it was March 2020. I just come off the back of 75 Hard from Andy Frisella.
Yeah.
And the gyms closed, and our entire business was built around personal trainers on the gym floor. And we're like, okay, we need to pivot. And at that point, we were like, okay, now we need to help these trainers go online. But I held my hands up and I was like, well, I don't know what to do here because we've not helped people go online yet. We're just helping people build those personal training businesses in person. So I looked to my network and I looked to my mentor. My mentor was Dave Smith. He was Canada's top fitness professional. At one point, very successful online trainer, was the owner of the Online Trainers Federation. And we decided to basically join forces, partner up with him, and build the Online Trainers Federation over the next 2 years to doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, helping trainers transition online. That business did really well. I sold about 1.6 to 1.8 million dollars worth of coaching for that organization. And then that business was sold. And when that business was sold, I then understood the blueprint, what it takes, what these clients need, how to do it, because we'd been doing it for 2 years. And that's when I went solo with my current business partner, set up our Remote Coaches Academy to help those trainers transition online after many years of doing it previously in another business and figuring it all out. And that kind of brings me to today.
I find that really interesting because, as you mentioned, I mean, it was my journey to a T. Start off as a personal trainer, get into coaching. I took a bit of a roundabout approach because I went into collegiate strength and conditioning first, then left that and started the online business after that. I built a business primarily on service. I never had to worry about selling. I never had to worry about promotions because I was in there relatively early. I took my first online client like 2009, 2007, 2009, somewhere around
Very
there.
early. Yeah.
Yeah, when it was just email and Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
Right. You use the
It
tool.
wasn't even called online coaching then. It was just
It was just coaching. It was just like, hey, do you want to help me out with a program? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll write you a program. We'll check in once in a while. There was no systems in place, and ended up building that into like a 60 client business, very high touch, high retention. And then the industry kind of changed. Online coaching became, I like to word it as online coaching is saturated with people. It's not saturated with coaches.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that.
When I work with people, it's to delineate between people who coach others and online coaching businesses.
Mm-hmm.
We want to create online coaching businesses. So I'm wondering what you do with remote coaches in the brief time that we spoke. You've built out this robust platform and community of, licensed products and adjunct services, and you really try to hold people's hands from, you're a personal trainer on the floor and you want to start a business. I'm going to give you everything that you need. How, obviously this is ever changing. You mentioned kind of the new way that you're going about it.
Yep.
How did it start? What did it start as, and what did it grow to today?
Are you referring to remote coaches specifically? Yeah. So I think at the basic level, it was more marketing sales because that was my expertise, marketing sales. But obviously, and you'll know this, is trainers will get a level 2, level 3 qualification or the equivalent in the US or Canada. But that's kind of just like passing your test when it comes to driving, right? Doesn't necessarily equip you with the things that you're going to need to actually deliver results. So it went from just sales and marketing systems, operational stuff, to me actually bringing in coaches who have built 6-figure fitness businesses online, like nutritionists, fitness coaches, expert programmers that have been in big gyms around the world, so also pass that knowledge of delivery onto clients. And I actually hired a success coach, Tony, who's like an expert in behavior change, and really helping clients with getting out of their own way, but also instilling the right behaviors that would lead to change and would lead to results. And so kind of evolved more into filling the gap of getting results versus just the sales and marketing. Because I'm great at helping people get attention, get sales, but that's pointless if you can't keep the clients. Because you've got a leaky bucket at the end of the day, right? And so you're constantly going to have to market and sell to keep replacing the clients that you're hemorrhaging on the back end. So I realized there was lots of clients coming through the door for these trainers, but they weren't necessarily keeping them very long. And so I then made changes to try and get the knowledge to them to obviously go and fill fill the holes in the bucket, so to speak. And my partner as well, Lara, she's a master's level nutritionist as well. So she's had a helping hand in our organization, helping the trainers, helping the coaching when it comes to nutrition. And I've got a nutrition and coaching business with her now as well, where I operate that kind of like independently. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we do together. And anything kind of we learn here, we then try and pass that on to our clients inside the community. But I would say that's how it's evolved, just straight marketing and sales to actually let's focus more on the retention, the delivery, the results. But that's where I think, and I'll hold my hands up, there is better places to go online when it comes to learning those specific skill sets of getting results. Maybe like yourself, or there's people I know in the UK who are just experts at like biomechanics, or there's people that are experts at nutrition, or there's people that are experts at behavioral change, or working with menopause, or people with emotional eating. And so I have a list of people that I'd say, hey, if this is your market and you want to be good and you just don't want to be a marketer and a salesperson, go and study or go and hire this person to learn that thing too. So kind of like Coach Cav, in a way, he has like this like
a web
team around him of people that he can say, hey, go check this out, go check that out. This is not my area of expertise, go check that out. Like I've got one other thing inside my program as well, like I'm no expert in like TikTok, for example. And so I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I'll just say, hey, I'm good at these things, but this person's better than me. So I'm going to bring that person in, and you're going to get to learn from that person because this person knows how to do it better than me. So I'm very much a connector as well of information, where I feel like I don't have the gap to fill what they actually need at that moment in time.
So one thing that there's two things that jumped out to me. Number one, the professionalism and humility to admit that you don't have all the answers. And also the growth mindset to say, I'd rather just bring other people on to help me and grow this thing, even if it means I make less money in the short term. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They say, I can't do this. It's not my wheelhouse. So I'm just going to stay in my wheelhouse. And then they never grow. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're like, hey, listen, I'm really good at marketing and sales. I'm not great at behavior change. Let me bring in a behavior change expert. I'm not great at service delivery. I'm going to bring in a service delivery expert. Was that humility something that came naturally to you, or was it learned the hard way?
I don't think it did. When I was 25 selling real estate, I was not very humble. I was very egotistical, like most 25-year-old men. I had something to prove. I wanted to go out and buy the biggest table at the bar, buy the biggest bottle, get the Rolex, like that was my mentality. But having done a lot of personal development over the last 20 years, really, because I started reading like personal development books when I was about 18 years old, I've become more stoic. I've become more grounded. I've become more humble. I've become less driven by ego. And plus, like, I think once you've got what you need, you kind of like don't need to prove things, because I've got everything, like if I look at my life and I reflect and I'm like, yeah, I'm still striving for more, but I'm content with what I have, and I don't need to prove myself to anyone. Yes, I'll demonstrate my expertise and my skill set and why someone should work with me, but I never feel like it needs to come from a place of ego. And that then just allows me to be more nimble when it comes to like identifying my own blind spots and going, hey, you know what? Like, this is not really my wheelhouse. I'm going to bring someone else in for this. Or, hey, like, I don't feel comfortable taking on this client because it just doesn't make sense for what I do versus what they need. Hey, go speak to this person, Like, I'm a big advocate of referring out and sending people in a different direction, or even turning away business. And I think that can be a superpower, because I think the more you turn away, the more you bring in, because then people really know when you're making them an offer because you genuinely feel like you can help them. And I've turned away a lot of business. And I think that's a learned thing. And I think age has something to do with it, but also personal development, self-reflection, journaling, reading stuff from Ryan Holiday and the Daily Stoic and stuff like that has really helped. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned turning away business, because it's something like, I firmly believe that if you want to work with a certain population and you keep getting the wrong people knocking at your door, you have to take that as feedback to say, hey, my messaging isn't what it should be.
Mm.
If you're not getting the people knocking at your door that you want knocking, obviously the message that you're trying to convey is not being heard by the right people. But further than that, if you're bringing in the wrong people and you're working with them, it's very quickly going to ruin your enjoyment of what you're doing. And I use the example of, the check-in comes into your inbox and you go, like, you never want to have that moment when you open a client's email because you're already in the negative headspace. As you've scaled the business, what have been some strategies that you've used to really make sure that the right people knock on your door and you're not bringing in business just for the sake of bringing in business?
The first thing I'll say is that comes also with time. So
Okay.
when you first start a business, you don't have a choice if you've got to pay the bills and you need to put food on the table, right? So I can empathize with the early business owner where they're willing to take on anything and everything just to pay the bills. But once you've kind of got enough, that's when you can then start to go, okay, actually, who do I want to work with? And who do I enjoy working with? And who am I willing to turn down to get the people I want? Because now I'm in a position to do that. Because I do believe that when you first start out in business, it is harder to do that, because you're in a scarcity situation. There's not enough. But as you start to build your brand and build your business and build your reputation, then you start to attract more of the people that you essentially want to work with. But beyond that, attracting the right people, I think it just comes down to really knowing fundamentally who you want to work with, and then getting in their minds, and really understanding how are they thinking, not how are you thinking, because how we think as the leader, the coach, the mentor, the guide is very different to the student or the person seeking the solution. So you almost have to get yourself into their mindset and think about what they are going through, what they are struggling with, and what they want. And there's typically going to be a sweet spot of things that you can say that typically will really connect with those types of people. I'll give you an example, and it's sometimes really, really subtle, but if I wanted to speak to a personal trainer, for example, who just wants to start their online business, I wouldn't say things in my marketing like, hey, if you want to scale your online business and get clients, then I can help you. Because the word scale is not for someone starting their business.
Right.
So it's just those little subtle things that you only really know if you sit down and go, okay, if I'm in their mind, what things are they searching for? How are they going to Google? What are they going to YouTube and typing in? What are the words that they're using?
Yeah.
And almost reverse engineering that and then putting that in your content. And I've even noticed that even almost downplaying what you can achieve to make it even more realistic to the person that you're marketing to makes it more believable. You see a lot of these people promising 10K months. Yeah, you've probably seen it. Hey, you want to make 10K a month online, And there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally achievable. I've helped many clients generate 10K a month. But when you're trying to target someone who is just beginning, that can almost be too big of a jump for them to resonate. And so it puts them off, or they question its validity, right? So it's kind of just understanding the type of person you're trying to attract and then catering for that person. So an example, just to close this loop, would be get your first 5 clients. That would speak more to the beginner. Or you could say, get your first or next 5 clients. So it's still kind of going to appeal to someone who hasn't started or someone who's just getting started, versus if you want to scale your online business and generate 10K a month, that would not appeal to someone just getting started. So just those little nuances, I think, allow you to then attract the people that you're looking to work with.
I think that's phenomenal advice, because I think one of the big mistakes, and we'll get into some of the other, we'll say, missteps that people make, is they don't understand the reality of language and how it's interpreted by other people. So one of the big things that I see is producing content and messaging for peers versus potential clients.
Yes.
Coaches putting out content to impress other coaches
Yeah.
versus coaches putting out content to appeal to their clients. I see it all the time. Oh, this advanced biomechanics strategy will help you achieve X, Y, and Z. It's like, that's cool, but no one who's going to want to hire you has any idea what you're talking about. And that's a problem. The next piece is, and this is a lesson that I learned, is so obviously when I start a mentorship, I'm going to start charging what I think it's worth. And then as I accumulate evidence of success, the price will go up to a point where the price became such that I couldn't appeal to the same clients I was appealing to at the beginning because, I mean, full disclosure, I don't really hide anything. My mentorship costs $7,500. So if I'm appealing to a coach who has no clients, I'm essentially asking them for $7,500 that they have not yet made. Or if I'm appealing to a coach that only makes $3,000 a month, I'm asking for 2.5 months of their pay for this mentorship. So as the price scales, you have to say, I'm probably going to target people who are making over $5,000 a month now that I'm charging this higher price point, because that percentage of their income is so much larger. So the language has to change, the messaging has to change, and even the way that the mentorship is set up has to change because the people doing it are changing. So I'm curious to know, like, as we get into, your niche, sales and marketing, what are some of the big mistakes that you see people make early on? And what are some of maybe the low-hanging fruit that they could capitalize on?
Let's start with low-hanging fruit, because that's an interesting term. It's actually a term that we use in the first strategy that we teach inside of our program. So like, I believe when someone joins any program, whether that's a fitness program, whether that's a business coaching program, the objective should be get people results as quickly as possible and get them some kind of like quick win. And you probably would agree with this because then it creates better client buy-in
Yep.
and better commitment, and then more willingness to then comply with maybe other things that we may want to suggest that they do. And so I really focus on that quick win mentality. And one of the things we teach is called the low-hanging fruit method. And so what I get my clients to do is I get them to basically create a list of at least 20 people that they've interacted with. Could be previous clients.
I'm laughing because I do the exact same thing.
Okay, cool. So like, what's coming.
Yeah.
Previous clients, like pretty close contacts, like not maybe inner circle, but maybe just outside the inner circle. So not mum and dad, but, like people that you have some kind of relationship with, people that you've interacted with pretty consistently, maybe on social media back and forth, like the warmest people. And that's why we call it, right, the low-hanging fruit, right? It's easy to pick from the tree. And I simply just get them to reach out to those people and just start conversations with those people. And then basically make them an offer. And it's not a direct offer. It's, hey, I've been working on this thing to help these types of people to get these types of results. Can you think of anyone who may be interested in this thing? And then it kind of leads into that nice conversation of, well, actually, I would be interested in that. Can you tell me more? Hey, why don't we jump on a call and chat more? Like, it's just as simple as that. And I think people like overcomplicate it, or they either don't have a strategy or they get in their own way and they just don't implement anything because they're fearful of, well, how am I going to be perceived? What if I get rejected?
That's
what
a
if no
huge
one
one.
responded? I think probably a combination of the tactical and the mental is really what stops people in every line of business, right? And so if we can just fix those gaps, the tactical, and then I can help them psychologically on the mental, then we create action, and that action then leads to results. So that was kind of answering your first question about like the low-hanging fruit. That's what we do, and that's something Alex Hormozi teaches. You're probably familiar with his work and what he talks about. He released the book $100 Million Leads. In that book, he says exactly the same thing. And I didn't get it from that book, but he just validated to everyone that I've already taught it to that that's what you do. Like, reach out to your network, because that's how I got my first 5 clients.
Same.
So that's the first thing. And then what was the other thing? You asked, I think 2 other things.
Maybe some mistakes that people make early on.
In what department? Marketing or sales? Marketing. In marketing, I think the mistake people make is they don't actually take enough action and don't fail fast. they kind of like wait until they feel like they've got the perfect post and they're saying the perfect thing. And ultimately that puts them in a prism of inaction, right? They're just kind of stuck and they don't really do anything. And you can only really get better by doing. I think you would agree with that, right? You can watch people bench pressing all day, but until you like get on the bench, get that bar like over you and put some weight on it, you're not really going to feel what it's like to bench press. So even if you're just bench pressing the Olympic bar on its own, that's then going to lead you to better form. And better form is then going to lead you to better confidence. And then better form, better confidence, and a better strength is going to lead you to then stacking the bar and growing. And it's kind of like content and marketing, right? People just don't even get on the bench. They just look at the bench and they keep watching content about the bench. And then they never get on the bench. And then they wonder why they suck at creating content and they're bad at marketing because they're not actually working on that skill set enough. And that's what I get my guys to do. I give them templates. I give them things that they can kind of copy, paste, and edit. And I say, listen, everyone else is going to be copying and pasting and editing this to their niche, and you're going to sound like everyone else. But I'd rather you sound like everyone else just for these first few posts, just to get the momentum going and just so you can experience what it's like to create correct content. And then you can start having your own voice and speaking to your niche. And so I like to just give people like a simple set of posts to work with and then get the ball rolling, kind of like a trainer showing someone how to do a bench press and guiding them through it or demonstrating how to do it. But then he's not going to continue to do the bench press for them. He's going to step away and go, it's your turn.
Right.
That's what I tend to do, right? So it's in action. And then that's marketing, I'd say. And then I would say as well with marketing, just as a side piece, I think people also fear and avoid actually narrowing it down in fear of losing out in terms of sales. You know, they think, oh, if I narrow it down too much,
You're not niching.
yeah, I'm not going to get clients because, well, I want to work with this person and this person. And what if this person wants to work with me, but I'm speaking to this person? And what they don't realize is, like, if you speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one, right? Because it's not tagged to everyone and they're just going to scroll past it. And so I think that's kind of like a big hurdle for a lot of people that they really have to get over. And those are probably the biggest challenges and mistakes I see people making at the beginning.
I'm really glad you mentioned the aspect of, practicing and finding your own voice, because this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. You mentioned the way that they're perceived. I don't want to be perceived as a salesperson. I don't want to be salesy. And at the end of the day, I always look at sales as a service. If I feel as though my product can help somebody, I'm doing them a service by offering it to them. So that fear of the ask really holds people back from actually making an impact in people's lives, which ultimately should be the goal of what we're all trying to achieve here.
There's one thing I say to people when they're scared of selling and they have that feeling that you're describing, right? Of like, I don't want to come across as salesy. And one of the things I often say to people is, did you get into the industry to scam people or to serve people and help people? And I know the answer to the question, which is why I ask it.
Of course. I hope they know the answer.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so they come back and they say, well, I want to serve and I want to help people. And I then say to them, well, if you want to serve and help people, you can only do that by actually making them an offer to work with you. And you're not looking to scam them, right? You just said it. You're looking to serve them and help them. So why should you feel bad about serving and helping someone? Because that's what you just said you got in the industry to do. And service is a byproduct of sales. The only place they're going to get truly served is on the other side of making that decision to sign up with you. Now, I get it. If it's not the right person and it's someone outside of your niche, you shouldn't be selling to that person if you can't get them a result. But if you truly can and you believe that, then you are serving them, or you're doing a disservice by not selling them into your program. And I think it's a big psychological bit of exercise that people need to do to really get the right framing in their mind, because most people have got that bad connotation of what sales actually is as like deception, manipulation. And I think like just with a bit of work on the framing of how we think about sales, that can make a massive difference in someone's ability to actually sell something. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was funny. I have we do a lot of traveling for work, and I have this habit of poorly marking my calendar as busy. So I end up having to take sales calls while we're driving somewhere. And it seems to be like my superpower that when I'm driving and not actually focusing on anything else other than my speech, I can sell people stuff. And like I'm 100%. When we're on the road, we're getting sales 100% of the time. My wife was joking with me this weekend because I had a call with a potential lead, and we ended up selling them the mentorship, which it was a great fit. So wasn't really a concern. But I think being comfortable having these conversations, being comfortable with your offer, knowing exactly what you're going to say, what questions that you need to ask, you're not going to get there unless you ask, unless you make the offer. Because here's actually something that I have all my clients do whenever they have conversations, like sales calls. If the sales call doesn't end in a positive manner, like they don't make the sale, ask why. Like, hey, I'm just wondering, what was it about the offer that didn't suit you? And I think people are worried about asking for feedback. Having honest and open conversations is the number one way to build relationships. And building relationships is exactly how you start coaching. I've actually had situations where a person doesn't want to purchase. I say, hey, just wondering, why was it that you didn't want to purchase? And they end up pointing something out. And I'm like, oh, actually, I do that. Like that problem that you're mentioning, I don't solve. I actually solve it. Here's how. And then you reopen the sales conversation. So I thought that was really interesting. The next thing that I want to touch on, ads. You've mentioned ads a couple of times, and I'm a bit biased away from ads. So I'll be fully transparent with, I haven't really run any ads. I have not had any clients really see the returns that you would expect on an ad spend. Is ads something that you start off with right away with your clients, or how do you integrate that within the process?
Great question. So I have a checklist really, because the people that I work with inside the academy are people that are looking to get their first 5 or next 5 clients, right? Like I described earlier on in that example with the marketing and the targeting. So for someone at that level, I would not be proposing to run an ad because they're going to need to tick some things off the list first. Like as a minimum standard, and this is not a black and white checklist, but as a minimum standard, I'd want to see someone sell at least 5 strangers into their offer from social media. So not their low-hanging fruit, not people in their network, not leads that they've known for 3 or 4 years. I'm talking like complete strangers into network, at least 5 of those people. I then also want to see that they've sold at a price point that would probably be in the range of $650 to $750 lifetime value of that customer. So let's just say you sell a 12-week program, then it would be that amount. Or if you sell month to month, then it equates to that on average, because if you're running ads, you're going to need some margin to pay for the customer. If you're too low, you can't afford to buy it. That's another thing. The next thing is really just knowing who you're trying to work with and who you're trying to attract, and your content reflects that, so that when you do go ahead and run an ad, like you know what coordinates to plug in terms of the targeting. And if that person were to come and basically stalk your profile, would it match the people that you're running these ads to? Because that then translates into conversions, right? It's not just ad to sale, it's ad to social to sale. It used to be ad to sale. Now it's ad social, email list, sale. Like that's the journey, right? So if the organic is weak or it's not speaking to the right person, then it's not going to convert. So that's kind of like minimums, but that's even high risk at that level, someone jumping into ads, because it's still a baby business. It's still relatively new. That's still a coach that probably still isn't having consistency with their sales yet, or seeing consistent months, or seeing consistent revenue coming in, where they could afford to drop $300 on ads per month and let them run for 3 months to optimize and start generating leads? Because most people go into it with the wrong mindset, right? They either have nothing, like I just described on that checklist, and they go, ads are my savior. I'm going to run ads. They're going to book a call. Boom. I'm going to make a sale. Going to make loads of money. That doesn't work anymore. And I don't think it ever worked, right? You still need to have a proven offer, product, etc. But also what I think is people's expectation of the time frame that it's going to convert is mismatched. So like you can make a sale in 7 days of someone joining your ecosystem if you're killer at your craft, right? You've got tons of case studies and testimonies. Your organic is just great. You've got email follow-up sequences. You've got tons of video content where they could gorge for 7 hours on videos and really get to know you. Like you can do it, but most people don't have that in place already. And it is kind of unrealistic to see sales from ads in those first 30 days, really. It typically takes 90 days for leads to start converting, and sometimes even longer. So you have to have the bankroll to run it for 3 months and be okay with that and not turn them on and off all the time, because they have to re-optimize every time you do it. And this is where people mess it up. They don't make a sale in 30 days. They turn it off. It then has to re-optimize again if you want to turn it back on again. So you've just built up all this data of it doing testing, and it's optimizing, and then people kill it because it hasn't made a sale, when actually it could start making sales because it's had enough time to optimize. So it is more complicated, and that's why the people who run ads make the most money, because it's a complex process where there's a high barrier to entry to get it right. But if you look at any business who does millions a month, they're running ads because organic can't support that amount of impressions on its own. No one's organic content, typically speaking, are doing that. So it depends where you are in business. If you're looking to make massive revenue, then ads is probably going to be the gateway to getting there, because you're going to need fuel. But if you want to do 5, 10, 15, 20K a month, you probably don't need to touch an ad. It's possible to do it without it. So it just depends on like what your objective is as a business.
So there's a few things I want to clarify for the audience, because this is something that for me, I had to kind of come by this knowledge the hard way. When you're saying $1 million months, when you're saying, $100 million coaching businesses, we're talking top line gross revenue.
Yeah, not profit.
Before expenses.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think the people automatically assume, oh my God, they're making $1 million a month. No. They're generating $1 million a month.
Revenue. Yeah, revenue.
Their net revenue, if we look at profit margins, probably 30% of that, which look, that's still $300,000 a month, which is an insane amount of money for most people. But I definitely have to clarify that for people. The other thing is, I think your ability to scale the business depends very heavily on what it is that you provide. You used a word earlier that is a bit of a thorn in my side when I speak to coaches. They talk about their coaching as a program. And for me, the word program is synonymous with time limited, whereas the word coaching or service is synonymous with relationship.
Yeah.
When you focus on relationship and you focus on service, that lifetime value of the client skyrockets. So one of the things that we spoke on earlier on in the conversation was retention, service quality. These are things that drive up lifetime value. You're able to month over month retain this client. So some of the coaches that I work with, we took their client retention from 3 months to 12 months. Well, then you look at lifetime value on, say, a $300 a month client goes from $600 to $2,400 simply by optimizing for service and building a relationship, not using the word program, removing them from the transaction and focusing on the actual service. When you are looking at building these businesses to that high ticket, like $100 million, whatever, you cannot provide a service with a high touch that generates that much money. Like I shouldn't say you cannot. It is very challenging unless you, number one, aren't the person administrating the service, right? You're selling coaching for other coaches to do the coaching for you, which then you're going to have to pay your other coaches. Or you are selling a program. You're selling something that's a one-time fee and you're just continuously selling. Or it's an MRR product that's a lower price point, low touch, kind of like a group model. So how do you decide, or how do you help people decide what sort of coaching business they want to run? Like what model they want to implement?
So obviously things go in seasons, right? Like things change. So from 2020 to 2022, I was a big advocate of the program model, the product model, or the 12-week, model of sell a 12-week, 90-day, this or that. And very much the higher ticket model of selling for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for X time frame. And that worked actually really, really well from 2020 when I first started doing it up until kind of late 2023 or midway through 2023. And I had a coach actually that did he did £30,000 quarter. So that's like averaging £10,000 per month, right? Which is probably about $12,000. But towards the end of 2023, it stopped selling. Like everything was the same, but it just stopped selling. Like people just stopped buying it. And then I have to zoom out of our little industry and go, well, what's happening on a macro level, like geopolitically, economically, and look at like other industries. And sometimes you kind of get sucked into your own little industry and you just kind of like one dimensional, but sometimes I have to step out when things are not working and going, well, what's going on here? Like what's happening in the rest of the world? And then I see the cost of living rising, cost of goods rising, the stuff with Russia and Ukraine causing problems for supply chain and oil and all that kind of stuff, right? Which has a knock-on effect on every industry, especially industry where it's like luxury goods and services. Because I would class personal training, online coaching, fitness coaching, they're luxury items. They're not necessities. Milk, sugar, bread, they're necessities. A trainer, online coach, they're luxury goods and items. It's not a Gucci handbag, but you get the point, right? It's like, it's a nice to have, not I have to have it, otherwise I won't survive. So that means there's always going to be a knock-on effect when cost of everything goes up to those luxury items, not super luxury because the rich are always rich, but kind of like luxury to everyday people. And so when I saw that, I was like, well, people still have cash, but they're not willing to part with big lumps of cash in one go. So I was like, you know what? I'm noticing that, but I'm also noticing that people are also not sticking longer than 90 days because they're coming in with this preconceived idea that it's 90 days and done. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm in, I'm out. It's like a product, which is great for marketing and sales, by the way, because people like definitive timeframes. Oh, I'm going to get it in this time frame. So it's good from a marketing standpoint, but as you pointed out, it's not so good from a retention standpoint. But I was noticing it was actually bad for a retention standpoint and bad for a sales standpoint because people weren't converting with the higher offers. So what we decided to do was we started selling the monthly reoccurring model instead, which is just month to month coaching. No minimum commitment. It's, hey, listen, Sally, based on what you've shared with me on the call today, and the amount of weight that you're looking to lose and the goals that you're looking to achieve, something like that is typically going to take us about 5 to 6 months to achieve that initial goal. And so I have a coaching service perfectly for that. Would you like me to explain what that looks like? And so you're actually selling people on the idea of what it would take to actually achieve their goals, but selling more of a service adjusted to what they're trying to achieve. But you're getting them used to just paying on a month by month basis with no like, hey, this is exactly 90-day product and then it's done. It's 4 to 5 months, maybe 6, and then we can evaluate from there and see if you want to continue. And so we switched into that model. Everyone's sales went up. And guess what? As you will know, everyone's retention went up from 90 days to 6 months to 9 months and 12 months. And this was even with the price dropped Because what we did was we brought the price down comparatively to what a 3-pay would be on a 90-day program. We brought it below that. And we knew if someone stuck for 4 to 5 months, it would match the 90-day program anyway. But the pricing would be much more sustainable. So in a market that has less dispendable income, they would be able to sustain that fee for longer, ultimately getting better results because they would stick around for 6, 9, 12 months. And that's actually the model we teach and preach right now. It's not selling 12-week programs. It's just selling month-to-month coaching. And that's the same model I have in my nutrition and coaching business with my partner. Sell month-to-month. Our clients stay 6, 7 months.
Yeah, I think longer. From a financial management perspective, this is where my inherent laziness actually benefited me, because I don't like inconsistencies with my income, because it makes it harder for myself to plan my finances.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, it was like no lump payments, only MRR, and I'm going to have a consistent revenue month to month, and it's only going to grow. Another one of the things that I always preach to the people that I work with is you cannot, and this is where maybe paid ads come into it, or maybe it's outsourcing or the other things that you can invest in to grow your business. You have to have the confidence that you're never going to make less money than you're making today. And that might sound odd initially when you first hear it, but say I'm making $10,000 a month right now. I know for a fact, with my work ethic, my expertise, and the experience that I am gaining, there will never be a period where, on average, over a 3-month period, I will not make less than $10,000 a month. It's only going to scale. And that mindset has never failed me, because it's completely taken away that fear of the future, that fear of spending money now to make money later. So that's something that, for me, now knowing where our business is and where I'd like it to grow, we've been able to get to where we are without any paid ads, only with organic growth, only with, referral-based social media, organic content. Well, now we're going to branch into paid ads, and we're going to see how that does. But we're only able to do that now because we have the running capital to be able to afford it.
Yeah. And also the infrastructure, the results, the credibility.
Great point. Yeah.
Ads only work if the business works. So I see ads can be 2 types of things. It can either be basically like a fire hose on a fire and kill it, or it can be gas on a fire and blow it up. It can be one of 2 things, but what it is depends on the existing business. So you're describing a business that's already burning really nicely, right? And it's going to be gasoline on your business, very likely. But for someone where there's just like a tiny little flame, it's probably just going to be water that you put on it and kill it, because you're basically just going to destroy its cash flow by wasting it on ads when you're trying to scale a business that's not ready to be scaled.
You mentioned a word that, for me, is very poignant, because it's an area that we fell very short on for a long period of time and still managed to grow, which again is why I double down on service. But infrastructure. Talk to me about how you help the people that you work with, or maybe the advice that you give to people on how to set up a business infrastructure that is capable of scaling.
Yeah, good question. So you kind of got to know like what service you want to deliver first of all, because that's going to dictate what infrastructure you set up. Because if you don't want to group coach people, then your infrastructure is going to look very different to just one-to-one coaching. So you have to establish, well, do you just want to do one-to-one, high touch, or do you want to do something over here that's less high touch, but is more scalable? But if you're going to do this thing over here, know the downsides and know that you have to be at a certain stage in your business in order for this to work. Because this is the easiest and is the best for the client typically, which is the one-to-one high touch stuff. So it's kind of identifying what you want to do first of all. So I would say everyone needs to start off, typically speaking, in a one-to-one coaching model first of all, not because it's the best model for someone, but it's the best one to learn about your customers is the best one to learn what they need. It's the best one to get the feedback. It's almost like a focus group, right? Of really understanding like what you're delivering, what's working, what's not. And then it helps you then develop the things like the infrastructure to make that more scalable by giving you leverage. For example, let's say I'm coaching you, okay? And I'm coaching 5 other guys. And all of you guys are pretty high performing guys, which you seem like a high performer, and you're like really wanting to optimize, maybe biohack, maybe like look at your sleep. And everyone's asking me about sleep. How do I get better sleep? Because I know if I get better sleep, I'll be more productive, I'll make more money, etc., etc. And everyone keeps asking me about sleep. And I'm jumping on every single call with a client and they're asking me about sleep. And I'm saying the same thing to every single client. At that point, I know, okay, I can keep going through this pattern of saying the same thing to these people who want to know the same thing, or I could create some infrastructure and a system to be able to deliver that information without me repeating it over and over and over again. And this is where you create some kind of training, a lesson, a resource to then remove yourself from that equation whilst not actually costing your clients the results they need, because you've taken the time to actually do it with the client, refine the delivery of what you're saying, and then you kind of package it up into a lesson. So then you can say, okay, I've got something on that. I'm going to send it straight over after our call. By the way, let's discuss this other thing. So then you can be super efficient. It's kind of like there's 2 of you, right? You've now got like a cloned version of yourself. And I'd be doing that not just for like these coaching conversations that you're having, but anything that you're doing that seems to be repetitive. So like, what are you doing? Like one of the big culprits I see when it comes to like taking people's time away is that they're just like manually booking calls with everyone. I'm like, why are you doing that?
Hey, are you available between blah, blah, blah? Oh,
no,
my
I'm
God.
not. Oh, are you available to this? No, I'm not. Are you? And they're going back and they're spending like 20, 30 minutes trying to book a call when they could just send a link, right? And so it's all just about looking at like, what are you doing that's very manual that you have to do all the time over and over again? And is there a system to replace you from doing it so that you can focus on other things? And it's just about going and auditing all those different things in your manual infrastructure and turning it into more automated infrastructure. I'm not talking about automating like the full coaching process, because
no, definitely not.
But I'm talking about the stuff that when you automate it, it doesn't lose its effectiveness and doesn't steal from the process and the service. It makes it better.
Exactly.
It saves you time,
yeah.
or it makes you faster. Or like the call booking link thing, for example. If you implement the call booking link and it saves you 2 hours a week because you don't have to go back and forth with 15 clients, you can spend those 2 hours learning about biomechanics that you can then turn into coaching sessions or lessons with your clients in the coming weeks, and now give them something they didn't have before because you implemented a system that gave you the time to go and do the research to then go and deliver that to the client. So it improves the service by giving you the time back. Or maybe it just gives you the time back so that you can actually recharge your batteries, get your own training session in, feel good about yourself, so then you can show up as the best version of yourself for your clients. Like those are the little infrastructure things I'd be thinking about just at a basic level.
I love that you mentioned you missed one piece, and that's perceived professionalism. I think when you find a tool that saves you money, improves the quality of your service, saves you time, and increases the perception of professionalism of your business.
Yeah.
Like I'll use the link that I sent you to book a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, oh, this is a nice landing page. It has a nice questionnaire. I didn't have to ask you for, like, usually what I would do is here's a Calendly link. Then I would email you back. Hey, do you have a bio and a photo?
Yeah.
Hey, what do you want to talk about? No, it's just all in a sheet, super professional, saved me all the time, saved you all the time.
Perfect.
And it was booked out.
Do you know why people don't do it though? Because there's upfront work to do to get it. Right.
But so it's kind of work for everything.
Yeah. But it's kind of easy sometimes to just keep doing it the way you've been doing it. But what's harder to do is actually sit down and carve out time to work on the business versus working in the business. And before we started this conversation, I talked to you about like making,
yes.
Like meetings and making, right? like there's certain like times in the day where they should be, in my opinion, if you want to build a good business, dedicated towards making things or building things to make the business better. And that would be an example, right, of like taking something that you're doing that's costing you a lot of time, energy, and effort, kind of like the podcast booking link, and going, okay, let me just like spend an hour cracking this so that I don't have to keep doing it the way I've been doing it, which is costing me so much time. So you have to have like that really dedicated time or intention to actually work on the business to get it done. Otherwise, you'll just be working in the business and keep taking on more clients, which then makes it harder to work on the business and like work on those operational stuff that's going to save you time. And I think that's a bit of a balancing act, because it's like, well, I need to make cash and I need to coach these clients. And you don't necessarily see the working on the business things right away. But once you invest the time and it's done and you start to see the benefit of all the time it's saving you, then it pays dividends, and that's really necessary.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. Like I'll share my own personal experience here in that I used to spend all of my time working in my business. I love coaching. To this day, I love coaching. The return on investment in terms of hours for dollars for me coaching clients, I could make way more money other ways, but I love coaching my clients.
Yeah.
It was a big eye opener for me when I started doing my mentorship to understand that, yeah, the dollar per hour of a mentorship is higher, which allows me to still continue to coach clients, but to a smaller roster. I went from around 75 clients now to 40 clients. And my 40 clients get as much attention as I can possibly give them. I'm still able to do the mentorship, which is less hours per week, higher revenue. And then I have all of this time to do podcasts, build a YouTube channel, create content, write more, optimize our website, do all the things that I previously didn't have the opportunity to do, and that handcuffed our ability to grow the business. You can only scale revenue in a few ways. You can work more hours, you can charge more money, or you can charge more money and somehow get more efficient with your time.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you remove yourself from that situation so that you're making money while you're not actually in service?
There's one more. Keep clients longer.
There you go.
But you're good at that anyway, so.
Yeah. So I want to be mindful of your time. We're coming up on the hour mark, and I am honestly blown away by the amount of value that we've provided during this conversation. I like to finish off a little bit, ask some silly questions, kind of get to know the person on a personal level at the end. So what is the most scary decision you've ever had to make in a business?
I would say like a pivot, and that was in COVID. So 2020 March, gyms closed. Everyone was in denial that they were going to stay closed, right? They were like, yeah, be open in a couple of weeks. A month passed, 6 weeks pass, 8 weeks pass, and they didn't open. And so that was a scary moment, not just for me, but for my clients and everyone else in the industry. And like I had to make like some decisions there to completely change the direction of the business or be completely out of business. And you asked me scary. I don't really get scared, but that was kind of like the trickiest time, I think, in my business career of like, we need to think fast or we're fucked type mentality. Mm-hmm. So it's like there was urgency, right? It's like we've got to make this switch, change. Who do we need to go to? Who do we need to partner up with? And I think a lot of people will probably be with me on that, who, if their personal trainer is listening to this, because they were having a no shit moment too at that point of like, what do I do? I'm just going to set up Zoom and I'm going to do PT sessions virtually, right? That was the makeshift way of doing online coaching for a lot of people. So yeah, that was a pretty turbulent time, but very thankful, very grateful, like I am for every challenge, because it always sets you on a path that I feel was meant to be seen. And it definitely was meant to be seen. And it was a great path that it took me on.
Love it. What's the last book you read?
That's Split the Difference by Mike Voss. It's
Great book.
actually what I've realized though is I'm trying to like optimize my learning. This is a great book, by the way, if you want to like sell more. This is probably one of the best books I've read on sales, even though it's not branded as a sales book. He was like a FBI hostage negotiator, so you can learn a lot from that. But one thing I've realized, and this will be a little nugget for anyone listening, is you can do a test online to see what type of learner you are. Have you done a test like this before?
I have not. No.
No, this is really useful because if you're trying to optimize your life, right, of like trying to do things better, simpler, more efficiently, sometimes it's useful to know what type of learner you are, so then you can optimize to learn that way. So for me, I realized that reading is not the optimal way for me to learn. It's actually listening. I'm an auditory learner.
Okay.
But what I did realize is if I combine auditory learning, which is my preferred way of learning, and reading at the same time, maybe it's the same thing, or like writing and reading my notes, then I retain information a lot better. But there's this application called Blinkist. Have you heard of it?
I have, yes.
Phenomenal. It basically condenses books like that into 50 minutes, but you can also read it as it's like saying it out. So you can read and listen at the same time. And so what I've done is I've fully optimized my learning where I take a book and I basically condense it into 15, 20 minutes with Blinkist. And then as I'm listening to it, provided I'm not doing something at the same time, I'll also be reading it as well because I know it's only 15 minutes. So I can be fully present. And the retention on that information is insane. I can literally recite it because I've listened to it and read it and I've condensed it into the main talking points. And so I have like certain books on rotation, like Atomic Habits, for example, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like the great books that you can read them over and over again and keep getting the nuggets. But instead of reading the whole book, I just Blinkist it and I read and listen at the same time. That was a bit of a long-winded answer for the book, but I thought I'd share that because I really think it's helpful.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of business?
Mount Rushmore is an American mountain, right? Where there's like...
Yeah, so sorry, your top 4 business people.
Yeah, that you top 4 business people. Alex Hormozi, for sure. I love his stuff. Who else would I say that I'm really liking? Iman Gadzi. Like okay. I really respect what he's done from the age he's at. And he was the first course I ever bought online when I was looking into like starting an agency. I bought his course and start an agency. So Iman Gadzi. And then who else do I really admire? Russell Brunson.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can tell like I'm internet marketer, right? Like everyone I'm naming are like internet marketing people because I've obviously got ClickFunnels Award. So I like Russell and his work. I've got all of his books as well. I've got both of Alex's books, Iman's stuff I've already bought. And then the final one, maybe someone more traditional, maybe someone like, you know what? Like it would be incredible to like talk to Steve Jobs because I'm a big Apple fan. I've got Apple everything, and what he did with the typeface and the product, and when we talk about service, when we talk about product, when we talk about something that's like really, really good, like Apple, it's $1 trillion company, right? And it lives to this day, even after he's long gone. And so I think, that's like a timeless big company that with an incredible founder. Yeah,
love it. Last question. If there was one person that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, who would it be? The caveat is you have to help me get them on the podcast.
Who would I like to see you interview? So with the people that you interview, like just quickly bullet point the type of content you do, just so I know their array, because then that would probably trigger the kind of idea of who you might want to connect with.
I have done interviews with coaches on actual like X's and O's coaching. We've done business conversations. We've done social media conversations. Anything that would benefit a strength and conditioning nutrition coach in the online space.
Okay, someone's coming to mind actually. Have you spoken with? Just bear with me. I'm just going to get a couple of options. because I don't know who you've spoken to, so I'd have to double check. But I'd imagine you'd want to speak to this person. So, should I choose that one or another one? I've got some good ones, man. I've interviewed so many people because I've like done so many podcasts. But
Yeah.
Have you interviewed Joel?
Jameson?
No, I can't even say his second name. Back pain specialist.
No, I haven't.
Phenomenal. He's one of the best in the world when it comes to back pain, spinal injuries.
How do you spell his last name?
It's PROSKEWITZ. Studied under Professor Stuart McGill.
Joel Proskowitz. Yeah, I know exactly who he is. He's a very, very knowledgeable person. That definitely would be a great talk.
Yeah, I did an interview with him in London, live in my podcast studio. Phenomenal guy. His brain is mind-blowingly good. Like, he would be an amazing interview, and I could connect you because Coach Cav connected us. I'll pay it forward and connect you guys. His stuff's insane. And yeah, that would be a good conversation, I think, for you to pick his brain.
Alex, thank you so much for your time today to be on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I'll have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes, but
appreciate it.
Parting words of wisdom for the audience.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. I know podcasting can be kind of like a lonely venture. And what I mean by that is not that it's lonely here sat with me, but when you're putting out these podcasts, because I started my first podcast in 2018, I've done 3 separate podcasts and recorded probably 600 plus of them. It's a lonely situation in the sense that you don't always get like likes or comments or feedback. You kind of just post it and then nothing happens. It's not like a reel on Instagram. So you've got to be like really just unattached to like what is happening, knowing that you're probably going to get no praise. No one's going to acknowledge it.
About this, I only record podcasts for excuses to talk to people I think are cool.
As long as you're just doing it for that and not views or like engagement or like, because you don't really see that with a podcast.
For sure.
Like, you can see like the downloads and stuff, but it's just not the same. And it's slow. It's probably like the slowest form of like content, kind of like YouTube. I just crossed 1,000 subs. It took me like a year and a half to do 1,000 subs. So like, it's kind of one of those like slow, long-winded processes, but I started it for the same reason. Gary Vee said, start a podcast and just build relationships. And that's what I did. I just started a podcast, built relationships, turned into a ton of clients, turned into a lot of business, turned into a lot of great conversations and a lot of knowledge. And that's probably the biggest benefit, even if 0 people listen to it.
100%. Dude, really appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, Alex.
Take care.